Okay, so we have about 22 participants at the moment. I think let's not waste any more time. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world today. My name is Yap. I work for the Malaysian Nature Society, so I'll be the chair for this session. Thank you so much for joining us. It seems to be going to be a very exciting session with 6 papers coming from Indonesia, Malaysia, and the Philippines, talking about local raptor monitoring. So before we start, there's some very basic housekeeping rules. I'm sure you all know already. And because today is Friday, we have our Muslim colleagues actually here going for prayers. So I would urge everybody to keep to time, which is 20 minutes each, 15 minutes for your presentation, and 5 minutes for your question and answer. So for question and answer, you can type in the chat box and I'll see if I can pick it up. Or if not, during the Q&A, please raise your hand using the function right at below under reactions. You can raise your hand. And for those who are not presenting, please make sure that you mute yourself. All right, and you can unmute when you want to ask question. So without further ado, I would like to invite Michelle Angelina Sharon to give a paper entitled Record of Raptor Species in the Northernmost Village of Badung Regency, Bali in Indonesia. So the platform is yours. Take it away.
Okay, thank you. Let me share my screen first. Okay, can you see my slides?
Yes, we can see your slide.
Okay, thank you. Okay, first of all, thank you for the opportunity. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Let me introduce myself. My name is Michelle. I'm an undergraduate student from Biology Department, Udayana University. And on this occasion, I would like to present my recent study about record of bird of prey species in the northernmost village of Badung Regency, Bali. By me, Michelle Indonesia Sharon, Mrs. Luhputu Eswarianti Kusumayuni, Mr. Ima Desaka Wijaya, and Mrs. Ida Ayu Eka Pertiwisari. Now I will tell you a short introduction, and I think everyone knows Bali. Everybody knows that Bali is the most beautiful island in Indonesia and also in the world. And then the northern area of Badung Regency, Bali, plays an important role as a water catchment area for Bali Island. Banjar Jempanang, Biloxidan, the northernmost village of Badung Regency, where PT Tirta Investama Pabrik Mambals, or Aqua, fostered village that focused on conservation programs. It is a mountainous highland area with forest and plantation area as the dominant type of the ecosystem. This area is also an upstream area of Ayung River, the longest river in Bali that covers 3 regencies in Bali, which is Bangli, Badung, and Gianyar. And then the condition of this area supports the wildlife and biodiversity in it and be a nice place to various species of birds. According to recent information by Burung Indonesia 2021, there are 1,812 species of birds in Indonesia, and the list of birds known for Bali now stands at 344 species, of which 190 are considered residents, 83 as regular visitors, and 71 as vagrants. And then some of them found in this area included bird of prey or raptor. Most research of bird of prey in Bali conducted looking for migration species. So there's like research conduct for resident species or not published. In regards to the important role possessed by this area, it is essential to carry out the regular biodiversity monitoring that subsequently can be used for the basis of biodiversity management plan for the area. Bird of prey is a predator that plays a significant role in balancing ecosystem and acts as quality bioindicator of an environment. Study of bird of prey in this area aims to record the presence of bird of prey species in new location as initial record for further research. This study can be a reference for research and be useful for the development of ecotourism around the study area. And this is the map of the study area. The location with yellow outline is Badung Regency. And this yellow pin is Jempanang, Biloxidan, the northernmost village in Badung Regency, Bali. So Biloxidan village is in a highland area with mountainous or hilly land condition. The dominant vegetation type is forest and field typical of mountainous areas. The average climate is normal. The average rainfall is 2,135 millimeter per year, with an average temperature of 24.2 degrees Celsius and average humidity 92.5%. And the rainfalls from October to April, and the most intense rainfall is from December to January. The topography of the area is hilly with a slope of 62 degrees. And the methodology we use in this study. The study was conducted on June 2021 at Banjar Jepanang Biloxidan village, the northernmost village of Badung Regency. We are using binocular from the observation by lookup method from 3 sites, which were forest edge, plantation area, and riparian area, with 3 observation points each site. Then we collect the species and activity as our data. Next, for the result. During this study, there were 3 bird of prey species recorded, namely the black eagle, Peninsular Malaysia, the black-tailed falconet, Microhyrax fringillarius, and the crested serpent eagle, Pilornicilla. The black eagle was observed flapping above the trees in the forest edge, with the conservation status by ARRCN red list is least concern, and the population trend is decreasing in the global scale. The species is protected by Indonesian law. And the second species is black-tailed falconet. The species observed perching in the tree, also in the forest edge, with the conservation status least concern, and the population trend is stable in global scale. And the species also protected by Indonesian law. And the last is crested serpent eagle. This species was observed twice, first soaring in the sky at the forest edge and also soaring at the plantation area. With the conservation status also least concern, and the population trend is stable and also protected by Indonesian law. So during our study, there was no record of bird of prey species from the riparian area. The bird of prey just recorded at the forest edge and plantation area. All the species recorded are all protected by Indonesian government. The species also observed in other areas like West Bali National Park, Tabanan Regency, and other locations. Unpublished data by Bird Study Club Culik Udayana said that other species of bird of prey like oriental honey buzzard, white-bellied sea eagle, Brahmini kite, and Praetorian falcon also observed at some places like Lagu Nusa Dua, Benoa, Pungkasa Pertiwi, and Denpasar, and also other places. Regular monitoring for their existence is must to do, considering bird of prey is top predator that plays a significant role in balancing ecosystem and acts as quality bioindicator of an environment. So for conclude this study, the conclusion is 3 species of bird of prey were recorded on June 2021 in Jempanang, Biloxidan, the northernmost village of Badung Regency, Bali. and it could be an initial record for further research. This study absolutely can be a reference for research and be useful for the development of ecotourism around the study area. I think that's all from me. Thank you for listening my presentation.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. We still have quite a lot of time. Anybody have any questions? Would like to ask any questions? Please raise your hand so I can see. No? Okay, maybe I'll give one question, Michelle. Of the 3 raptors that you managed to record during your studies, did you also record how many individuals you documented, you saw? I mean, for example, I'm interested in how many individuals you've seen of the black eagle in your study site.
Okay. For the black eagle, we just see one individual, and it's flapping from behind the trees at the forest edge. Just one individual.
Just one.
Yeah.
Okay. What about the rest? The other 2 species?
The other 2 species, the
black tie falconet and the serpent eagle.
Just one individual, and the crested serpent eagle is 2.
Okay. Thank you, Michelle. Anyone else? No? Going once? Twice? Okay. Thank you, Michelle, and your team for presenting the paper. So we move on to the next speaker, who will look into the climatic factors, the correlation of climatic factors on the presence of raptor species in the Prapat Agung Peninsula, and again in Bali. So Ibu Eswaryanti will present, and Ibu, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So that's it. Okay, have to put this on slide. So thank you very much. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Eswaryanti Mayuni. Today I will present our study in Bali Barat National Park. I'm representing my team with me and Oka Yudhya Vedanta, Pak Sudaryanto, and Igusti Ayu Madestri. So climate change has been known to affect organisms in many aspects. For example, the arrival of migratory species, including raptor. For example, in research conducted by Sirihai and Christie in 1996 in Israel, found that in May and April, when the air temperature warms quickly in the morning, large number of small and medium-sized raptors migrated after sunrise. While in February and March, when the air temperature in the morning was cooler, medium and large raptors migrate first each day, but at a later time, by flapping until the air temperature allows them to do the passive flight, soaring or gliding. One phenomenon that also occurs is, for example, the response of predator and prey is not the same to climate change. Birds may do not reproduce when the number of their prey is abundant, therefore reducing the rate of reproduction success. This shows that the response toward environmental condition, for example, climate changing, differs among species. Study on response of migratory raptor toward climate change have been conducted in Bali. This is our research as well. So in 2020, we found that air temperature, cloud cover, humidity, and air pressure had a strong correlation toward the migratory raptor species that cross over Mount Sega Karangasem compared to wind speed and precipitation. And we also found that the air temperature, cold cover, and wind speed had a positive correlation toward the migratory raptor arrival, whereas the negative correlation was demonstrated by humidity, air pressure, and precipitation. The presence of Chinese sparrowhawk and short-toothed snake eagle that we found in Mount Sega Karangasem were correlated with the humidity, whereas the presence of the peregrine falcon was correlated with the cloud cover, and then the presence of oriental honey buzzard was correlated with the wind speed, while the precipitation and air pressure were correlated with the presence of Japanese sparrowhawk. And then we found also that Japanese sparrowhawk arrived earlier at 10 EM, Indonesian Central Time, whereas the other 4 species arrived later at around 12 o'clock. So no studies, however, that focus on the effect of climate change on sedentary raptor species have been conducted in Bali. So this study aimed to find out the correlation of climatic factor on the presence of sedentary raptor species in Prapat Agung Peninsula, Bali Barat National Park. So Bali Barat National Park is the only national park in Bali that has a primary role to conserve the endemic, critically endangered the Bali myna, Leucopsa robstildi. The release program sites for this bird are mainly located at the Prapat Agung Peninsula. To ensure the success of the release program, multiple approaches are ultimately required, including studies on the potential predator, for example, on sedentary raptor species. Such approach that can be useful as reference for the National Park Authority in managing the potential effect of climate change toward various species in their locality. So this is the Bali Islet, and then the Bali Barat National Park is in the tip of north and west of the island. And this is the Bali myna that conserved over there. So the method, this study was conducted from October 2020 to April 2021 at the Prapat Agung Peninsula, Bali Barat National Park. Observation was made from 8 to 17 with Indonesia Central Time by using lookup method. When required, binocular and DSLR camera were used to assist in species identification. So we record some climate factor that we collected from AccuWeather software application using smartphone based Android. And then for analyze, we use the percent correlation and PCA using SPSS. There is this is the information of the study site. So in Prapat Agung, this is consists of 2 resorts. One is Teluk Berumbun and one is Prapat Agung. So they have various type of ecosystem. They have a savanna, coastal forest, and monsoon forest over there. So the altitude is from 0 until the maximum is about 70 meters above sea level. So what we found during the study period, so there is 6 species of raptor recorded in there. So we have a black-tailed falconet, peregrine falcon, spotted kestrel, singable hawk eagle, and crested serpent eagle, and white-bellied sea eagle. So where we found them mostly, so we found that they mostly found in the monsoon forest and later also in the savanna. Only a few found in the evergreen forest and also in coastal forest. The average temperature that collected during the study period was shown in this table. So the air temperature is range from around 28 to 29 degrees Celsius. They are not much different among months over there. So that's typical in the tropic. And also the rainfall and then the wind also is not many varied, and then humidity and then cloud cover, air pressure. So not many significant change in the mean average temperature. Each month. So after that, we try to correlate the our collecting data with the time of the presence with the time of the presence of the raptor species. So we're doing the percent correlation between the to temperature, between the climatic factor that we collect. So we found like variable temperature correlated with real field, wind speed, and humidity. Real field variables apart from temperature variable also significantly correlated with wind speed, humidity, and cloud cover variable. So this is like showing how all other factors like correlated each other. So wind speed also significantly correlated with the cloud cover variables, in addition to being correlated with temperature and real field variables. There was also significant correlation between the humidity and air pressure variables, where the rainfall variable with other variables were not significantly correlated. Based on the correlated value, it can be seen that temperature variable had a very strong positive correlation with the real field variable, while the temperature had a very strong negative correlation with humidity. The higher the temperature, the higher the real field value, while the higher the temperature, the lower the humidity. So we then conducted the PCA analysis. The PCA analysis was carried out to reduce the weather variable optimally, obtain the result that there were two eigenvalues greater than 1, so that two components were determined, and then the data diversity that could be explained by the two components was 60.9%. Furthermore, at the below table, factor analysis showed that component 1 was formed by variable of temperature, real field temperature, humidity, and air pressure, while the component 2 was formed by variables of wind speed, cloud cover, and rainfall. So in this study, raptors were recorded from 8 AM to 16 Indonesian Central Time. However, the peak of encounter was from 10 to 11. This finding is in agreement with TIAS 2019 that the peak of raptor encounter in Monsega Karangasem, Bali was from 10 to 12 Central Indonesian Time. A study by Lor Suniklak et al. 2008 also found that Chinese sparrowhawk was observed from 10 local time with the peak at the middle of the day. Climatic factors are known to affect activity of encounter of raptor species. Parewang et al. Stated that raptor encounter was the most during the fine weather. This is, I think, like everybody know about that. Yeah. In this study, air temperature, real temperature, humidity, and air pressure were the first component that correlated with the presence of raptor species in Prapat Agung Peninsula, Bali Barat. The other factors, such as wind speed, cloud cover, and precipitation, was the second component that correlated with the presence of raptor species in Prapat Agung Peninsula, Bali Barat. These findings are agreement with Uni et al. 2020 that air temperature, humidity, and air pressure were the first component that correlated with the presence of the migratory raptor species in Monsega Karangasem, Bali. So, however, in Uni et al., we are not recording the real field temperature. So real field temperature is the combination of all weather factors that are then calculated so that they become the actual temperature values felt by the organism. So it is known that in this study that real field temperature had a strong and significant correlation with all other climatic factors recorded, namely air temperature, wind speed, humidity, and cloud cover. The fact that wind speed, cloud cover, and precipitation were the second component that correlated with the presence of raptor species in Prapat Agung Peninsula, Bali Barat was in agreement as finding in Uni et al. 2022. Although it was in contrary with Capisaan and Hawkins that found that the presence of the raptor species in Hawk Mountain Sanctuary, Pennsylvania, has a strong positive correlation with the wind speed. Weather factors have an influence on the emergence of factor species since they need thermal air for shoring as bed strategy to save energy. The study also noted that the raptor species in Prapat Agung Peninsula, Bali Barat National Park predominantly perform soaring activity when they were observed. This study therefore confirmed quantitative findings on the correlation of climatic factors on the presence of sedentary raptor species in Prapat Agung Peninsula, Bali Barat. Such findings that can be used by the National Park Authority as references in managing the potential effect of climate change to various species in their locality. For example, interaction among species, since species respond differently toward the changed climate. I think that's all for me for today. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you, Ibu, for the interesting presentation. where how climate influences the raptors. So again, we open to the floor. Any questions that you want to ask, raise your hand, or if you just want to write it on the chat box. Anyone? Everybody hungry already, yeah. Maybe I'll just ask one to Ibu. Ibu, you mentioned this, you studied on the raptors, right? But in the presentation, you didn't show what are the species that's actually really affected. We know that the migratory raptors are affected, but if you put there, you say sedentary. Does sedentary mean resident raptors?
Yes, I mean resident, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, did your study find out also which species is most affected by your findings, your climate findings?
Yeah, that's actually like the more analysis that actually that we will do. Like this is just the initial data that we have that we will do for the further analysis to see like how what is the variation, what is the interspecies response to what the change. So this is like really the basic data that we have for the resident raptor, while the one that we have from SEGA is more comprehensive that we can do further analysis. But yeah, but this is just the start for the resident raptor in them.
So this is considered your early days now, and more needs to be done. All right. Ibu, there's a question from Yen Yi Lu, which she asked, any other environmental factors that you would like to test that you think will affect the presence that you have not tested yet?
Yeah. So I think there's from the problem in for us is how to access the climate data from the government. So when we try to ask collection of data from the Bureau of Meteorology, so they ask like so many requirement, have to get permit from this, from that, from there, from everywhere. So just from the start, we have find it's very difficult to just to fulfill all the paperwork. So that's why for the start we just using the apps, the weather application to start with. Later when we have like a significant funding for that, so probably we will do all of the paperwork required for the access data from the Bureau of Meteorology in Indonesia. So that's probably that I can answer right now. Yeah.
Is that okay, Ilu, or you have any understandable? Yes, I think it's sometimes challenging to get information or data from the government agency for various reasons. Maybe you can suggest to your agency that by selling public some data, which the public is okay for the public. They can help make money for the government. So like here, our meteorological department, I think, do sell some data, those that is not confidential.
Yeah.
And probably you can, if it's suitable to your study, you can buy the data.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Any other question? Anybody?
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Yes, we all think climate data should be open access.
So when because they like I have to ask permission from the department. I ask from permission from many parties there.
Many layers of.
Yes, so it's been like all right. So she just like doing that. Yeah, maybe later. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, we try. All our countries have that challenges. So if there's no more question, thank you again, Ibu Eswaryanti, for giving us a glimpse into your early days findings. So next, we will still remain in Bali Barat National Park, and this time we invite Oka Widiyavedanta. I don't know if I pronounce your name correctly. Please forgive me. Yeah, so I'll just call you Bapak Oka lah, if that's all right. So Oka will share with us his findings on the significance of monsoon forests for the presence of birds of prey in Prapat Agung Peninsula, Bali Barat National Park. So Bapak, the platform is yours.
Okay, thank you for the time. I will present my presentation first. Is the presentation already shown in the platform? Can you see the presentation?
Yes, we can see your presentation. Proceed.
Oh. Okay, so thank you for the time. Good afternoon or maybe good morning for everybody who attending this session. Let me introduce myself first. My name is Oka Widiyavedanta from Biology Department of Udayana University. Today, I will present my recent research with supervisor of Ibu Luputu Eswaryanti Kusuma Unit and Bapak the FX Daryanto about significance of monsoon forests for presence of birds of prey in Prapat Agung Peninsula, West Bali National Park. So let me give some introduction first. So National Bali Barat in Indonesia is the only national park that exists in Bali Island, located in the westernmost of Bali. West Bali National Park conserves many flora and fauna, including the Balimina or the Olecopsaurus cheli, the only one endemic bird that live in Bali. Unfortunately, its population are extremely decreasing right now. According to IUCN Red List 2022, Balimina is listed as critically endangered or CR. Because of that, Balimina is included in the CITES Appendix 1 and protected by Indonesian law, or for more detail is in Permen LHK P106 Men LHK Sekjen Kum 1/12/2018. Conservation action to conserve Balimina and its habitat has been conducted through multiple approaches, including the post-release of monitoring program. One activity that was to monitor is their potential predator of the wild. According to record that has been reported by BirdLife in 1997, raptor species that have been reported as the predator of Balimina in West Bali National Park in the past were peregrine falcon, Falco peregrinus, and black winged kite, or Elanus caerularius. So there are 4 lists that were provided by West Bali National Park. The first is near the office of West National Bali Park in West Bali National Park Management Center in Gilimanuk Resort. The second is in the 3rd Management Section National Park, or in Indonesia SPTS Seksi Pengelolaan Taman Nasional SPTN 3 Labuan Malang, located near Port Tumenjangan Island. Last two of these releasing spots are located in the Prapat Agung Peninsula, the most extensive area in West Bali National Park, specifically near the Segara Rupak Balinese Temple or Pura Segara Rupak and Brumbun Bay. We can see at the map here where Prapat Agung Peninsula are indicated by the red line, and the 4 releasing spots are indicated by the star symbol. So in Prapat Agung Peninsula has various type of ecosystem such as evergreen forest, coastal forest, savanna, and monsoon forest. According to record to Kusuma Negara in 2018, there are some raptors that live in Prapat Agung Peninsula, namely changeable hawk eagle, Nisatus cerhatus, crested serpent eagle, Spilornis cilla, peregrine falcon, Parco peregrinus, and black-winged cat, Elanus caerularius, that were in the past recorded as the predator of Balimina. So for aim and benefit this study aimed to determine birds of prey species that use monsoon forests for their activity, as well as recorded their activities in Prapat Agung Peninsula, West Bali National Park. All finding in this research can give information about utilization of monsoon forest by birds of prey, so it could be used in management decision for conservation policy, especially in West Bali National Park. So this research was conducted from until 15 January 2021 in Prapat Agung Peninsula. This research used a combination of point count and exploration method. Raptors were observed by look up or look down, depends on height and contour of the observation. Also, radius of the observation depends on the type of ecosystem where the raptors found. Tools that were used there are binocular, telecit, two types of camera, DSLR and digital pocket camera, smartphone that have actuator and smart measure, GPS and field guide. So data that were collected are species that were found, the coordinates of finding, ecosystem that were used, activity that were displayed, and trees that were used by the raptors. For more detail, the observation started at 8 p.m., 800 a.m. until 500 p.m. This research used combination of point count exploration methods, so all the records can be recorded, even though I'm on the way to the point of observation. Raptors are observed by looking up or down with radius that depend on heights, contour, and ecosystem types. When the raptors are down, they written down the data that were written down. There are species, ecosystem that were used, activity that were displayed, and the trees species there if the raptors are eating trees. All the data that is obtained is then tabulated, presented as percentage, and made a graph using Microsoft Excel 2019. The coordinate of their finding are remade into map using QGIS 3.8 version. To see any correlation between raptors and its ecosystem, dependency tests also conducted using chi-square method on SPSS in the 22 version with significance level of 5%. For more detail, if asymptotic two-sided was more than 0.05, hypothesis 0 are accepted and hypothesis 1 are rejected. But if asymptotic two-sided was less than 0.05, hypothesis 0 are rejected and hypothesis 1 are accepted. So hypothesis for the test was hypothesis 0. There was no dependency between any species of raptor and the type of ecosystem, or both variables are independent. For the hypothesis 1, there was dependency between any species of raptor and the type of ecosystem, or both variables are dependent. Data that input into SPSS are in the form of numeric code that can be shown in the table below. So for the result and the discussion, after total of 405 observation in Prapat Agung Peninsula, West Bali National Park, there was 67 sightings of raptor that consists of 6 species. Those species are namely peregrine falcon, 2 species, 2 individual, spotted kestrel, 2 individual, white-bellied sea eagle, 2 individual, black-fronted falconet, 3 individual, changeable hawk eagle, 22 individual, and crested serpent eagle, 25 individual. There were also 11 identified raptors that encountered during this observation. This is caused by the distance between researchers and raptors are too far, approximately over 1,000 meters or 1 kilometer. So from all the raptors that have been encountered, raptors preferred to use monsoon forest rather than any type of ecosystem. As a percentage, raptor that use monsoon forest as much as 55.2%, savanna as much as 38.8%, coastal forest and evergreen forest as much as 3%. Moreover, according to the result of the dependency test that's shown below, value of P, or in this table is in the asymptotic two-sided table, the result was 0.021. This result was lower than the predefined level of significance, or alpha, which was 0.05. Therefore, it could be concluded that there was a dependency between species of raptors and the type of ecosystem. For more detail, it can be shown in the cross table, in the cross tabulation table. It can be shown that there are 37 of raptors that using monsoon forest. Those 37 the individuals are divided again into 4 species. There are crested serpent eagle, the most sighting, 17 individuals, changeable hawk eagle, 9 individuals, black-flanked falconet, 3 individuals, and spotted kestrel, 2 individuals. There were also 6 individuals of raptor that can't be identified. Activities that were shown by raptor are soaring, flapping, perching, and hunting. Trees that exist in monsoon forests who have been also used by the raptors are Phacelia leucopolea, Sconetia ovanata, Scaleria arceolosa, and Timuntiniaga calabura. There are no predation of Bali mina by raptors recorded within this study period. However, there were some Bali mina found near the observation point that can be seen in this finding map. In the map, we can see that finding of raptors shown in the red cross symbol, and the Bali mina founding are shown in the yellow triangle symbol. So in conclusion, monsoon forest was the most used ecosystem by raptors in Prapat Agung Peninsula, West Bali National Park. Raptor species were found were changeable Hautigon, Isaetus cirrhatus, crested serpent eagle, Spelorniciella, black-tinted falconet, Microas peningularius, and spotted kestrel. Activities that recorded in monsoon forest were soaring, flapping, perching, and hunting. There was no predation or negative interaction between raptors and Bali mina during this period of study. I think that's all for my presentation. I want to thank to anyone who helped me with this research, namely the West Bali National Park Forest Ranger, field staff of West Bali National Park, and other researchers that were present that time. This is some picture of them. Thank you for all your attention.
Okay, thank you, Oka, for your presentation. The floor is open for questions.
Okay.
Anyone? No questions? None? Yes. Nakajima-san, please ask away.
Okay, thank you so much. I have one question. You have recorded, you have a report about the peregrine falcon in savanna area. But usually peregrine falcon use seaside or cliffside. And there's no suitable cliffside in the research areas.
Okay, for more detail in the Burumbun Bay or in the near the Menjangan Island, there are many cliffs that near the sea. So there are a lot of cliff in there, and their elevation is about I think it's about 60 to 70 meters above the sea level. So there are some peregrine falcon that were existing there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, just following up with Nakajima-san's question, since you found the peregrine, do you know whether it's a resident peregrine or a migratory peregrine?
I think it was the resident peregrine, but I don't make it sure because they fly so fast. So when I was looking, sometimes it just go away and perch in anywhere. Yeah, just like that. Just
Okay. Do you plan to do more studies there in your location?
Well, for now, I think I don't have any plan, but in the future, maybe if there are any more findings, especially for the Javan hawk eagle, if there are any spotting there, I will try to conduct any more further research for the maybe the habitats or the type of ecosystem that were used. I think that's all.
Okay. Anybody else who would like to ask Oka any questions? Anything on the chat box? No? Sure. Okay, thank you again, Oka, for your presentation. So we move on to the next. Okay, we move on to the next speaker from Indonesia. We'll come back to Malaysia, and we have Tuan Shafiz Muhammad Azman, who will share his observations on raptors in selected central CFS ecological corridors in Peninsula. Tuan Shafiz, the floor is yours.
Many thanks, Mr. Yap. I hope everyone can hear me clearly. So there you go. So everyone can see my slide.
All good. Yes, all good.
All right. Okay. Assalamualaikum. Very good day to everyone. My name is Muhammad Shafiz Azman. Together, I'm going to present some of the finding that we managed to observe on raptors in selected Central Forest Pine ecological corridors in Peninsular Malaysia. Well, basically, we know raptors are predators to most small mammal species, and they are one of the essential function for raptors is to control rodent population. Why I'm saying this? Because I'm a small mammal by training, so my interest is actually on the rodent. But in order when we carried out our study, so raptors is also one of the things that we managed to observe during our samplings. So this Central Forest Pine initiative was first introduced in Malaysia back in 2009, where it aimed to re-establish the connectivity among fragmented forest landscape in Peninsular Malaysia, where we know that this forest landscape fragmented due to various reasons, especially on the vast land use change in Peninsular Malaysia. So this initiative was to create the connectivity, especially the forest reserve through ecological corridors. Under this initiative, there are 37 ecological corridors were identified, 17 on primary linkages and 20 as secondary linkages, which involve 8 states in Peninsular Malaysia, right from the north to the south of Peninsular Malaysia. And the importance of CFS is actually directly to biodiversity conservation, where it will increase chance to obtain resources, especially on the habitat, food sources, meat, etc., and definitely on the increase of resistance against diseases with higher genetic diversity, and of course the increase of possibility or chance for certain population to survive, which we can avoid extinction. On the right hand side, these are the two reports that were published back in 2009 regarding the Central Forest Pine initiative. So this initiative was meant to connect all 4 forest complexes in Peninsular Malaysia, covering Titi Wangsa Bintang Nakawan Range, Taman Negara Timur Range, Southeast Pahang, Lake Chini, and Lake Bera, and last but not least, at the southern part, Endau Rompin Park and Kluang Wildlife Reserve. So these are the location of the 37 ecological corridors that were identified under the initiative, connecting straight away from the north with Ulu Muda to the south of Peninsular Malaysia, which is at Kuala Sedili. So ecological corridors that we talk about is a primary linkage and secondary linkages. For the primary linkages, where we can see is very linear connectivity, where it will connect one forest reserve to another, due to development costs such as roads, railways, and then basically these corridors are meant for the large mammals like tiger, elephant, whatnot. And for this case, another good example for this corridor, which is situated in Greek Perak, which is divided by Greek Jeli Highway. Another ecological corridor that were identified was secondary linkage, where it's a stepping stone concept, where more than 2 forest reserves become smaller patches, and it will and then it will be tougher compared to primary linkages, due to the fact that most of the areas were converted into different land use, such as housing areas, agricultures, and aquacultures. And although these forest reserves were divided or fragmented to certain reasons, these also important areas for smaller sized vertebrates. For instance, like one in Negeri Sembilan at further south, southern part of Peninsular Malaysia, and also in Selangor. So this initiative was targeted, one of the main initiative focused on by our national policy on biological diversity, where is 2016 until 2025, where in target 8 specifically mentioned that important terrestrial and marine ecological corridors have been identified, restored, and protected under the key indicator 8.1, whereby at least 10 primary corridors under the CFS initiative has been fully implemented. So this also was supported with the third national physical plan, where under the KD 1.1.C, it clearly mentioned about the creating and strengthening the implementation of terrestrial ecological corridors, including CFS. Therefore, this study, this information would directly contribute to these main two plans or policies at the national level. So for this study, it covers 9 study areas, 9 corridors. We started with Kedah at the northern side, which is CFS1 SL7, involving Pedu, Chebah, and Ulu Muda, whereby in Perak, CFS1 PL8 covering Kendrong and Bintang Hijau, and then Kelantan on the eastern side of Peninsular Malaysia called Sungai Bro and Lodging, and further still at the eastern side covering Terengganu, CFS1 PL7, Tembat and Taman Negara, and then Pahang, we have 2 corridors. Number 1 is PL1 involving Sungayu Forest Reserve and Tanong Forest Reserve, and CFS1 PL6 Ulu Jelai and Lemoy Forest Reserve. As I mentioned just now, another one of the corridor in Negeri Sembilan, SL7 Ansi Forest Reserve and Berembun, and 2 more ecological corridors situated at the southern part of Peninsular Malaysia, which involve Lenggor, Mersing, and Labis Timur, and also Pantai and Ulu sendiri. So these all 9 sites were assessed, not only for raptors, but basically the main focus, the main objective of this assessment was to look into small vertebrates, which covers small mammal, Avifaunal, especially on the understory birds, and also herpetofauna, whereby that's why these observation were made based on opportunistic sampling using binoculars when we carried out the sampling. And as a result, there are 10 species of Accipitridae species, crested serpent eagle, changeable hawk eagle, crested goshawk, black hawk eagle, Wallace hawk eagle, rufous-bellied eagle, black eagle, white-bellied sea eagle, lesser fish eagle, and grey-headed fish eagle. These are the 10 species that we have spotted. And then from there, site number 9, which is Johor, PL3, Panti Ulu Sendiri, recorded the most number of species of Accipiter, 9, at least 9 species. And then followed by Terengganu, which is Tembat and followed by Kedah, which Pedu, Chebah, and Ulu Muda with 7 species, and followed by Terengganu with 3 species. And there's one site, site 5, which is actually from Sungayu and Tanong. We haven't recorded any raptor during our study. So, based on, and then from the data, we noticed that the common species detected were crested serpent eagle, at least at 6 corridors. And based on our literatures across the public published information at these areas, there are more species is expected, and covering at least 30 species from the literatures as I mentioned. So these are some of the photos that we managed to capture. This is white-bellied sea eagle, changeable hawk eagle, crested serpent eagle, grey-headed fish eagle. And as a recommendation to this study, basically this is a very, how to say, tip of the iceberg, where it's just generate very brief information on raptors at these corridors. However, we would like to recommend some of the studies that can be carried out, especially on the population and community of the raptors, and also some of the prey at these areas. And then from there, we can see how the type of functional response can be calculated, and then effect of canopy habitats towards raptor survival, definitely on diet and how this I mentioned, I mean, some of the roots affect on the diet and preference for these species, and definitely distribution of raptors and climate. These are some of the photos of my team member during our studies. With that, thank you.
Thank you, Tuan Shafiz, for giving us an insight into what raptors can be detected at our ecological linkages. Just to give more context to Tuan Shafiz's presentation, since I'm also from Malaysia, the Central Forest Pine is currently our main policy that deals with forest habitat and also wildlife in general. It was created more for mammals, but of course we can still find bird diversity inside there. So this is more for terrestrial conservation.
Yeah.
So like many countries, it shows that we still have a lot to do where terrestrial forest resident forest raptors are concerned. So any questions? Anybody would like to ask Tuan Shafiz? Any questions? Anything in the chat box? No?
Well, maybe since I can share some of the insight from the initiative right now to the public. I think it's very important to know that Malaysia is very serious on protecting and creating the ecological corridors connecting all these fragmented forest reserve. Although despite so many stories right now at this time, at this very date, actually, ASEAN Minister Tiger Conference is actually held in the country. So I think most of the issues related to habitat, forest fragmentation, and then how we can protect all these areas, I think is very very important and need to be strengthened. And by having such information, I think this is a very is going to start something like a more output-based solution to be created, especially at the policy, whether it's federal or the state level. I think this is a very important information that I can share to everyone. And such initiative is actually very important to us right now to address forest fragmentation.
Yes, Tuan Shafiz, you are correct. And I think like many of us in our respective countries, we need to do more to create the information to support whatever wildlife and habitat policies that we have in our respective countries. Never mind that it's created based on large mammals also, but other biodiversities, including raptors, need to be highlighted out there also as well. So any questions? Any questions? Any thoughts? Any sharing?
Yeah. I think on top of that also, Chin Ai, I think the one that Lee Yong presented just now regarding about citizen scientists looking at the gathering data related to raptor or whatnot, I think it's a very fantastic initiative. I think MNS also holding such initiative, continue carrying this initiative to pursue to gather all this information. I think it's a fantastic. Kudos to MNS to keep pushing all this lah. So I think it's a very good initiative that both government and non-government organization must work on.
Yes, thanks, Shafiz. Yes, we need to find ways to collaborate more despite doing all this for quite a number of years, especially where migratory raptors are concerned. Last call, anybody? Nobody else? Okay, we must be very hungry then.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you so much, Tuan Shafiz, for your presentation. And from Malaysia, we move on to the last country, the Philippines. And we have Miss Jelaine, if I hope I pronounced your name right. Wonderful. So Miss Jelaine will share with us the results of her road transect surveys and mapping of forest raptor communities in Luzon, Philippines. Jelaine, platform is yours. The sharing, Jelaine? Still blank at the moment. Jelaine, are you there?
Sorry,
You have to. Yeah.
so I will try again.
Yes, try again. Go
It
ahead.
didn't work at all. Wait.
Okay, try again. Try again.
Okay, screen share. There. Do you guys see the screen?
Yes, wonderful. It's right
Oh.
now in front of us. Please,
Okay.
floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for staying put, even though it's already lunchtime in most areas. And I am Zelaine Gan, and I'm here to present our paper with Dr. Carmela Espanola, entitled Road Transect Surveys and Mapping of Forest Raptor Communities in Luzon, Philippines. This project was funded by the Oriental Bird Club and supported by the Raptor Watch Network Philippines and the Institute of Biology in the University of the Philippines, Diliman. Now, I know everyone knows about the Philippine eagle, but aside from the Philippine eagle, the Philippines is actually home to around 29 species of diurnal resident raptors, of which 25 species are found in Luzon. Luzon being this large island here on the northern portion of the country. In that 25 species, or among that 25 species, we have species that are of conservation concern, such as the near-threatened rufous-bellied eagle, the endangered North Philippine hawk eagle, and of course, the critically endangered Philippine eagle. Most of these raptors are inhabitants of forests, and we all know that everywhere, forests are already threatened by deforestation. So despite the importance of raptors in our ecosystems and despite the threat that is ongoing with their habitat, there actually has been there hasn't been any population survey on raptors done in the Luzon, Philippines. And in fact, the last field study that was conducted on the island was observations by Gamuth et al. In 1998. Now, this problem of seeing lack of research about resident raptors was also reflected when I looked at the review of related literature in the past 50 years. So when I did this, I only found 29 studies covering topics such as taxonomy, distribution, genetics, and health. And among the 29 studies, 17 are actually on the Philippine eagle only. So this shows that there is a bias in the study species involved, as well as a general lack of research attention for the rest of our resident raptor species. I guess this is also because raptors are very difficult to study. We all know this, they're hard to find, they're elusive, and they're widely dispersed. And so to study them, there have been many or different kinds of survey method proposed, such as nest searches or looking out for breeding pairs, or territory mapping, just like staying in vantage points and looking at their territory flight. And one of the most famous one, the method would be the road transect survey method. Now, this last one is mostly advocated for open and semi-open habitats. Has been said to perform poorly for forested habitats. Its variation comes in the form of point counts or line transect. So given this context, wherein there is a lack of any population study here in the Luzon, Philippines, as well as the method being not yet proven to be useful here, my objective was to study the forest raptor communities on the island, specifically to estimate the abundance of forest raptors and to compare two road transect survey methods, specifically the point transect and the line transect. By doing so, we get an idea of the raptor status here in the island, as well as gain insights for the methodology that will be applicable for raptor monitoring programs in tropical forest ecosystems. My study sites are located in different parts of Luzon, here in the northern coast, to the west, to the eastern coast, and to the southern areas. These 6 sites roughly correspond to centers of mammalian diversity, which are known prey item for our birds of prey. Now, in each of these 6 sites, I established a 15-kilometer road transect, and along that 15-kilometer, I employed both line transect and point transect. For the line transect, I rode a motorcycle which traveled at a constant slow pace, and while riding on one, I observed and recorded all the raptors seen and heard. In the same route, in the same 15-kilometer transect, I did also point transect, wherein I stopped at every 1-kilometer stations and recorded all the raptors seen and heard for 10 minutes. If the weather was good, I'll be able to do 1 line transect and then 1 point transect in a single day. Now, this paired survey data will later on be compared so that we can see the data or the abundance data that will be given by the 2 methods. This was repeated several times, around at least 3 times for each of the methods. Now, aside from those 2 road transect, I also did a plot mapping method. Now, this involved the same route. So imagine this line being the 15-kilometer line, and I plotted all the raptor occurrences. So here in the circles are, for example, observations of the hawk eagle found in different dates. So this was repeat 1, repeat 3, and repeat 4 of the point transect. So I saw it 3 times. With this data or with this map, I overlaid the data from the other method, the line transect. And these are shown in blue circles. Repeat days are also indicated inside as numbers. And with that, we can see a general map of all the raptor occurrences in the site. So here, this clump was observation of a hawk eagle on the first day using the line, and observation again on the second day using both the line and the point transect, and on the 4th day using the line transect. With this, we can delineate which are unique from each other. So using a threshold of a radius of their known home range, I can say that this is a unique individual from this individual. With all those 3 methods, I can summarize the data in terms of abundance index or encounter rates. This is just basically number of raptors per 10 kilometer. Richness index as the number of species over the total species encountered for that site. And for density index, it's over the area of the transect for the line and area counted for the point count stations. And again, for the paired survey data, wherein I have 1 line and 1 point transect in a single day, I compare them using statistical tests, Wilcoxon signed rank tests. So after traveling around 500 kilometers of road transect, I have in total detected 399 individuals from 13 species. And between the 2, or in comparison, when I did almost in total 218 kilometers of line transect, the detection was around 4.2 raptors per 10 kilometer. For the point transect, after traveling around 293 kilometers, I detected, or I had an abundance index of 6.9 raptors per 10 kilometer. In terms of time spent for the survey, you can see here that for the point transect, I spent around 250 minutes on average. And this is almost 4 times longer than the time spent for the line transect. Raptor encounters were mainly peaking between 9 to 10 a.m. as seen here, and progressively decreased in the afternoon. And most or majority of them were encountered while in flight or in soaring, while a minority were seen perched are also calling or doing both. Now, this pattern of raptor occurrence or encounters is actually expected. Road transect survey method is more readily detecting flying or soaring species because of their increased visibility. Now, if the raptor was staying in the canopy or perched under the canopy, then they may be hidden from the foliage or because of the foliage. And also, the peak time around 9 to 10, that's also the time when thermal starts to be gathering. And the raptors use those thermals in order to gain elevation in their soaring flights. For the fourth objective of answering how abundant are forest raptors in Luzon, I present here the abundance indices for the different species that I have encountered. So out of the 13, you can see that 3 are conservation important. So that's the North Philippine hawk eagle, the rufous-bellied eagle, and a non-forest species, which is your gray-headed fish eagle. Also noted were migratory species such as the western osprey, indicated by the legend M, and endemic species, indicated by the legend E, such as your Philippine honey buzzard and so forth. Aside from the abundance indices, which was reported per method, you can see here and even compare. Let's say, for example, here in the point counts, I detected all 13. Well, for the line transect, there are some species that were not detected by the line transect. But overall, it is the plot map, since it's a combination of the two methods, that gave me the highest abundance index. Aside from this, you can also look at the occurrence, meaning this is the number of sites where the raptor was seen. So here, western osprey was only seen in 1 out of the 6 sites. Using both occurrence as well as the abundance indices that I have presented a while ago, we can get a general ranking of the raptors seen from most common to the least common. And shown here are the most common, so that's your Philippine serpent eagle, the Brahminy kite. These two are actually quite tolerant of disturbance, and they are usually found also in secondary forests. And along with the crested honey buzzard, all 3 species, all 3 common species as detected by my survey, were also classified as common species in literature. So it makes sense what my data says as well as what literature says, that they are common species. Next up in the ranking, we have here your rufous-bellied eagle, the North Philippine hawk eagle, and the Philippine honey buzzard. Now, all 3 or these 3 were generally following the general prevalence classification in literature, wherein they were classified as uncommon species. So it makes sense. It still tallies together. However, for the next set of species, these are your falconet, the gray-faced buzzard, the besra, the Chinese sparrowhawk. There is now some kind of mismatch between what I have detected in my survey and with what literature says. Because these species are classified as common species based on literature. But here in the surveys, I only detected them very few times. The difference here is that these set of species or this set of raptors are actually mostly non-soaring species. They usually stay under the canopy and they don't do as much soaring flights as those raptors that were shown previously. And we've discussed that road transect survey method more readily detects mga soaring species. And so, hence, these species were likely to have been missed during my survey. What do we know now? Well, we know now that the forests are important habitats for at least 61 species of Luzon's diurnal raptor assemblage. And we also know that we derived abundance indices from the road transect survey methods were in agreement to what the literature says. And this proves the utility of using these methods to provide baseline data for future comparison on raptor trends or raptor status assessments. For the second objective, which was on comparison or on the comparison of methods, I show here your figure, the number of species detected per method. So the gray one or gray bars are for the plot map method. The orange ones is for the line method, and the blue ones is for the point method. And across the different sites, the trend is the same. We're in, that is the plot map, the combination technique that showed the highest or detected the highest number of species, followed by the point transect, and then followed by the line transect. Now, with the paired data that I mentioned a while ago, I will now show you. Yes.
Jelaine,
yes?
you have 2 more. Do you have 2 more minutes? Yeah.
Yes. No problem. I will now show you the comparison. So for the richness index, you can see that there is significant difference between the two road transect survey methods. Well, for the abundance index and the density index, they're actually not significantly different from each other. With that, let's put them all in a table so that we can easily see that in terms of time spent, line transect is shorter and point transect will take 4 times longer. But with this difference in time, it's all right for the abundance index because there's actually no significant difference between the two. Same for your density. There's no significant difference between the two methods. The only difference will be in terms of richness, wherein there's more species detected for the point transect method. And with that, this study demonstrates the efficacy of road transect survey methods to gather data on raptor abundance and distribution in tropical forest ecosystem. Between the two, it is the line that is more time efficient, but if your survey requires you to detect most of the species, then go with the point transect. And when you use more than 2 methods, you can combine them using the plot map method to get a better picture of the raptor community. And lastly, these road transect survey method can be repeated to gather data on raptor abundance and distribution. With that, I'd like to thank all the people and organizations that made this possible. And I am now ready to accept your questions. Thank you for listening.
Hello?
Yes, I'm done.
Jelaine, you're done. I'm so sorry. My connection went offline for a while. So I just came back using a different platform. Okay. Thank you so much, Jelaine, for such an interesting survey using 2 different methods broadly. Anybody has questions? Anyone? Just go ahead and ask if you have questions. No questions? Any questions?
I see one question in the chat box.
Yes. So yeah, could you address that?
All right. So I'll read it first. So I'd like to know, what are the tools that you use to survey? Did you only use binoculars or is there another tool? Now, this is a very straightforward method. You just establish the road, and then a must here is to have a vehicle. So in my case, that's a motorcycle, but it can be a vehicle like a car or other vehicle that you can view the top or at least the general horizon. And then while you, the observer, you just need binoculars to look out and identify the raptors. Aside from that, you don't need anything else. You just need your identification skills working so that you can identify the raptors seen. But basically, it's just your binoculars and a vehicle so that you can travel faster.
Okay. Thank you, Michelle. I do have also some questions. Did you use a Harley Davidson for your survey?
Sorry, what?
The motorcycle that you used in the icon was very interesting. I'm thinking, did you use a Harley Davidson for your survey?
No, I'm not familiar with the Harley Davidson, but I just use what's available in the local motorcycle. So it was a very
I
bumpy
see.
ride, I must say.
Yeah, but your line transect, you said that you drive, you start from the point you drove until to the end point. How did you record the raptors while you were driving a motorcycle?
Oh, I don't know how to drive a motorcycle, so I had a driver. I cannot look up while driving at the same time. I think that's going to be dangerous.
It is very dangerous. So I was wondering how you record while you're driving at the same time. So you had a driver do that while you observe. Is that generally?
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay. You had nest search also as well, I think, in one of your methods, if it was not wrong. How do you search for the nest?
Oh, that's just for the review of related literature. I just introduced the different method used, but I didn't do it for this survey.
Okay. Have you published your findings anywhere?
This is already in press, so watch out for it. It's gonna be released in soon. It's still in the process of printing.
Okay. I was wondering if it's in press and if it's available for people to also perhaps read, then you can perhaps put it in the chat room. Chat box. What is the citation? All right.
Oh, it's not yet ready. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else want to ask question? Okay, we have question from Irhamna.
Oh, there.
Yes.
I'll read the first one first. How do you choose the route? So what's important with the route is that it's accessible by vehicle. So it's something that drivable. Not all routes were cemented, so it's okay if it's a rough road as long as the vehicle can go through it. And to choose them, in my case, the starting point were chosen randomly. So I chose them so that there's no bias in terms of the raptor community that will be recorded in my survey. But yeah, as long as it's drivable, then you can use it. And then, of course, since my target is forest raptors, you have to make sure that the sides of the road are forested. It would not make sense if it's not forested at all. So you have to be in a forested road. And then there's also another question about GPS.
Okay.
So yes, I did use a GPS device. There's also another app that helped me was a mobile GPS application. It's Gaia GPS. And it allowed me to real time while I'm standing, get the bearing, what is the angle from my point to the raptor scene, and also plot it on the elevation map. So that allows me to get a more accurate location of the raptors that were seen in flight. So you can try that. I will type in the chat box. It's a free app. Thank you.
All right. Any more questions? No more questions? Okay. If that is the case, we are up for the last presentation, and we will still remain in the Philippines. And Mr. Jason Carranza will give us his Avifaunal assessment of the Capisaan cave system, Philippines, towards protection and conservation of endemic and migratory bird species. Sir, the platform is yours.
Okay, thank you, Sir Yap, for the introduction and for having me. I'm the last presenter, so I think I should make my presentation quick so we can have our lunch break earlier. So may I just share my screen first?
Yes, we can see it.
All right. This research is actually done in one ecotourism site in Nueva Vizcaya in the Philippines. And this is part of a greater research for the biodiversity assessment of this area, since this is one of the flagship ecotourism site in the province of Nueva Vizcaya, which is found in the greater island of Luzon. So my title for this presentation is the Avifaunal Assessment of the Capisaan Cave System towards the protection and the conservation of endemic and migratory bird species. This research is not really focused on the raptor research, but rather this assessment led to the discovery of a very significant site for a spring roosting site of very important migratory raptor passing through the Philippines. So just to give a background of this site, the Capisaan Cave System is a well-known already tourist destination in the province of Nueva Vizcaya because of its magnificent cave formations and unique forest over limestone cover. And the area has a total land area of 1,515 hectares of land found situated at 700 to 1,200 meters above sea level. And it is a very significant biodiversity corridor adjoining two great mountain ranges in Luzon, which is the Sierra Madre Mountain Range and the Mamparal Caraballo Mountain Range. So the study area, just to give you a better picture, it is found mostly at the center of Luzon. And the map here shows the extent of the cave system. So the methods that we used in this survey is the point, transect, distance, sampling method. So Ms. Jelaine a while ago presented the method that would be best used for Avifaunal survey, which is the combination of the two. So this is what we did. So thank you, Ms. Jelaine, for reinforcing my method. It was laid out and surveyed representatively, covering all possible ranges of the habitat of the forest over limestone forest, which is that transect was laid out in two sub-cave systems, the Alayan Caves and the Heaven Sabrina Caves. Why two transect? Because since this area was also offered for bird watching site, these two trails were offered as the bird watching areas. So each transect was marked every 50 meters to assist in recording the broad habitat types for assigning birds. And point count station was positioned every 250 meters along the transect. And the total of, it has a total of 8 stations that were established during the survey. So we used 10-minute point count for each point count stations. And the transect walk was conducted also to note species that were encountered from one point count station to another. And the time of survey is that from dawn, when bird activity was usually at the highest, and transects were also repeated on a different day in the opposite direction to account for birds that are more active on earlier times, which were not covered in the first SWAT of bird assessment. Okay, so for the data analysis, we tried to gather data on species richness and abundance, also the diversity indices for the diversity, the Shannon-Weiner, Simpson, dominance, and evenness using the past software package. So we tried to collect also data on endemism, and we tried to test the statistical difference of the two transects, since, as I have said a while ago, these are offered for ecotourism bird watching site. So if these two sites are not really unique from each other. So for the results, the Avifaunal survey revealed a total of 61 species belonging to 35 families of birds. And 36 of these were known to be endemic to the Philippines, and 8 species were categorized as threatened, either in the IUCN or the Department of Environment and Natural Resources list. Overall, we counted 953 birds, individuals, during the entire duration of the field survey. The field survey was conducted from March 19 to March 22 in 2019. And these are the top most abundant avian species observed in the sampling sites. So as you can see, there's only one migratory bird species that is included in the list, which is the gray-faced buzzard. From in these two sites, we have detected them roosting, and overall, the most abundant species taking their relative abundance is the gray-faced buzzard. So we're lucky that during the time of assessment, it is the spring migration passage in this area by the gray-faced buzzard. And as I mentioned a while ago, this is the first scientific recording of this gray-faced buzzard roosting in the area. So for the number of species, relative abundance, and species richness, we can see from this species curve that somehow there are almost the same number of species for the two sites, but the species accumulation curve doesn't much play to at the 8-point count station. So there is still a high chance that more species of birds can be detected if the transects were extended. But then due to the limit of this transect, we use only those the whole stretch of the trail that were offered for bird watching. So these are the different pictures of those birds that have highest relative abundance. We have the gray-faced buzzard, the ridge-topped swiftlet, the Philippine bulbul, the ridge-topped swiftlet, and the grayback tailor bird. So for the indices of species diversity, both sites have high Shannon-Weiner index, which shows that in these two areas have a considerably high species diversity of birds. And for dominance and evenness, greater number of birds were detected in Alayan Cave as compared to Heaven Sabrina Cave, but then larger flocks. The Lion Caves obtained a relatively higher value for dominance, but for evenness, Heaven and Sabrina have more even bird species distribution. So in both sampling sites, we have for residence and status and endemism. Residence status and endemism, we have relatively high endemism in those two areas, which is more than 50%, and about 30% of those listed birds in each sampling site were known to be residents, and only 8% were migratory bird species. So these are the pictures of these resident birds in the area, endemic bird in the area. We have the elegant teeth, the grayback tailor, the Luzon scaps owl, the white-browed shama, the Philippine trogon, and the scale feathered malcoha. This is the grayback and the olive-back flower pecker. And for status and conservation, most of the birds in the list were considered uncommon. Those birds that are under the IUCN or the Department of Environment and Natural Resources list, most of those birds were considered uncommon and rare species because of their skulking and very elusive behavior. And more threatened species of birds listed in the IUCN, this seem to occur in Heaven Sabrina Cave, while greater species that are threatened by the DAO 2019 of the DNR, apparently recorded in the Lion Caves. But overall, the presence of these threatened endemic species in the sampling site implied that the area is very important bird habitat. So these are the different endemic birds that are under the list. We have the blue-headed blue flycatcher. We have the gray-throated sunbird. We have the ridge-topped swiftlet, the Rufous cucal, the white throat shama, and the white fronted teeth. So to test for statistical difference, the t-test reveals no significant difference between the two sites. So meaning both sites have no significant difference in the amount of bird species that can be found. So both of them can really be offered for bird watching in the area, which is this is consistent also to the species richness. Sorry, am I muted? Can you still hear me?
Yes, yes, we can still hear
Okay.
you. I think you went slightly a few seconds without
Okay, thank you.
voice just now.
So I would like to proceed to the conclusion. So we, from this very simple research, we were able to conclude that the Capisaan cave system and its adjacent forest over limestone have high avifaunal diversity and endemism, including a number of threatened endemic species, making it an excellent candidate for critical habitat establishment. And the presence of the roosting gray-faced buzzard appears to make the area an important temporary roosting site for these raptors, which is probably plays a significant part in the East Asian Australasian flyway, at least for the Luzon Island Passage. And Sir Alex Chonko mentioned yesterday that maybe those gray-faced buzzard passing from Taiwan also use this one, and there are also maybe gray-faced buzzard that go directly enter the Philippines directly through the Sierra Madre mountain range, but that has still yet to be confirmed through studies that will be done later on. And this occurrence of fascinating endemic bird species that are found in the area also can make the ecotourism potential in the area more viable. But then because of those present threats present in the area, more information and education IEC can be done in the area about biodiversity conservation, with emphasis on the flora and fauna should be done from schools to the neighboring communities and even to the community as well, is very much necessary to make the locals be aware of and appreciate these resources in their community, and to promote them to the long-term benefits of managing their natural resources properly. And also, since deforestation is very evident and still exists in the area, planting of native fruit trees and other valuable indigenous plants is very much encouraged for the community and also for other organizations to do the same in the area, so that the overall aesthetics of the Capisaan cave system that is offered for caving and bird watching can have a better aesthetics and better environment to house or receive, especially these migratory birds passing through this area. So with that, thank you very much for listening. And if you have some questions, then I will be glad to answer them.
Thank you, Jason, for sharing your work in a very unique landscape and habitat.
Yes,
I think in Southeast Asia, forests over limestone or cave systems are very understudied, and along with it, whatever wildlife or biodiversity that is within it. So we are open for questions. Anybody want to ask or seek more information from Jason? One in the chat. Oh, okay. Devi says she imagines that she might be there. So perhaps Jason next time can issue an invitation, come and help you.
Yes, sure. Very much welcome. But we should wait for the pandemic to end. Because
Of course. Anybody want to ask any question? Or perhaps, yes, there is. Okay. Perhaps I'll just issue one. In your studies, the raptor that seemed to be prominent was the gray-faced buzzard. So that's a migratory species. Did you manage to detect any resident species?
During our following visit in the area, we were able to identify also some honey buzzards and the Philippine serpent eagle we have. But other than those, we barely see African eagle, but rather community accounts that every year they can see this kettles of gray-faced buzzard passing in the area, but then there are no records identifying them, or but the community have identified other roosting sites in the province, but they also mentioned that there are hunting that has been happening in this area. So more information, education campaign should be done so that these threats to this kind of species must be done. And not only those gray-faced buzzards are being hunted, also those resident eagles that we have.
And we have a question here from Devi. I think it's not far from what I asked you earlier. She asked if you can tell her about more about the raptors that is dependent on specific limestone ecosystem in your area of research.
Yeah, that would be a very good suggestion on Devi for future research in the area, because since we gathered information about where can they be found, but these birds, especially the migratory raptors, since the area is the total area is almost 1,500, it's very difficult to associate if they really try to find this area because as suitable for their roosting. But that would still be done if more research can be employed in the area. But we will consider this one. We try to correlate if they really use or find specific limestone areas to roost. But rather, since this is a corridor between two great mountain ranges, the Sierra Madre and the Cordillera, maybe they find areas more pleasant to pasture or roost, or areas with high thermal locations, I think. But as to association, it's no study yet that has been done.
I think the road for you Jason is clear that if you can probably invest more effort in this kind of life habitat type
Yes.
at your site. Yes. Okay. So with this we have concluded all our presentation. If I were to summarize all the papers, I think I could probably say it in maybe 3 sentences. Number one is, I think obviously for all of us, 3 countries here, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done in the country, as well as inside the country. There are many sites that need to be explored in terms of raptor ecology. And I think the second one is based on what Jelaine has shown us. There's obviously very interesting prospects for using roads as a transect, whether it's for point count or line transect, and there's something that perhaps all 3 countries can continue to look into it. And the last one is things like issues such as climate change is definitely going to impact raptors in all our countries. So that is another aspect that perhaps more research can be invested in this starting from now, because anything that involves the word climate is going to need long-term data. So with that, thank you so much for staying with us, everyone, from the presenters to the audiences. You can go for lunch now, but please remember to come back by 2:30, because that's where we're going to start with the next plenary session. So thank you so much. Have a great lunch.